All right, good morning, everyone. My name is Danielle, and I'm very excited to be sharing with you some of the innovations inside of VISI 2016 today. This presentation will go over enhancements to the user interface, modeling commands, as well as the enhancements in mold, progress, and flow. Again, everyone's on mute to ensure that everyone can hear me clearly. I'd like to ask you to please hold your questions throughout the presentation and then direct them either to your sales rep or our tech support, and they can be reached at the email and phone number shown here. Also, 2016 is now available for download on the TST FTP website, and that can be accessed through our TST website. So if you don't have a DVD containing the install yet, you can feel free to download it directly from the FTP site. For starters, you've probably noticed the new naming convention. This is not VISI 22, it's 2016 R1. And there will be a second release, R2, later in the year, probably around May or so. And this will be the new convention for future releases. The full install has a separate migration tool to transfer over your VISI 21 settings to 2016, and I'll talk more about that in just a second here. To further ease the transition to 2016, the work files are fully compatible between the two versions. So 2016 files can be opened inside of 21 and vice versa. 2016 will also use the same license file as your current version of 21. So once you download and install 2016, just use your 21 license file and you'll be good to go. VISI 2016 supports all versions of Windows from 7 and up, and this is the professional version at minimum. This does also include Windows 10. Also, as stated earlier this year, 32-bit is no longer supported. VISI 2016 is solely 64-bit. The 2016 migration tool that I mentioned just a moment ago is a really nice enhancement. It operates essentially just like the update CFG did inside of 21, but it provides more than just a transfer of your user settings. This tool can also transport over your tool libraries, machines, compass files, any custom standard elements you might have, etc. And it's a separate program that can be used immediately after the install by clicking on the checkbox that's shown here. Alternatively, it can be executed on its own after the installation altogether. There's a shortcut available under the 2016 R1 application that you can reach from the Start menu. Using this tool provides just a really smooth transition between the two releases. The Help menu, which is accessed by clicking on F1, has been vastly updated to reflect the 2016 layout as well as all of the new innovations. So if you're ever stuck or would like any further information on an operation, this is a really helpful feature and is usually a good go-to guide. Upon opening a fresh install of VISI 2016, you'll immediately notice the Quick Access toolbar. This feature reduces the toolbar clutter and groups commonly used commands together. You can create your own command combinations, but you can also still use your old toolbar settings from 21. Now, inside of a command, you'll also notice 4 new buttons in the graphics area. There is a green check mark to confirm, a red X to cancel, so there's no need to continuously hit the escape key. You can always click on this red X. And there are 2 arrow buttons that allow you to traverse the steps of a command. Now, this isn't a new function inside of VISI. I believe it was introduced in VISI 21. However, it was kind of tucked away off to the side and not really noticeable. So they just kind of made it more accessible to use this functionality. Along with these 4 new buttons, 2016 also provides quicker access to the contextual icons. So instead of moving your cursor to the left-hand toolbar to select all of these icons, you can now just simply right-click and access those right at your cursor. In previous versions of VISI, the hidden lines visual filters grayed out certain commands which prevented them from use. Now, these graphical views allow all access to the commands and they are fully functional. 2016 also has a handful of graphical enhancements. There's a new anti-alias management for smoother graphics, and this can be adjusted under the system settings graphics. So if you ever bring in a part that looks too much like a polygon and not enough like a smooth, round surface, I would recommend checking out this graphics enhancement with the anti-alias and adjusting that parameter. You can now also map the orthogonal view to any quick key. There's also a new toolbar display, which I mentioned just a moment ago, and this can be customized to your liking or just disabled altogether, so you can use your old toolbar settings. The dialog boxes for the modeling commands now have an option to be docked, as opposed to always floating. This would keep them off to the side and away from your workspace. The Save Part As command can now link solids via 3D dimensions. So if you had two parts that were linked by dimension in 3D space, saving one part could also save the other. And then those parts can be merged into a different file with that dimensional link. There's now a method to saving across a network in this version of VISI. This new procedure provides a major speed increase when saving files, especially the larger ones across a network. First, the file is saved locally in a temporary location on your system, and then at that point, you can continue working on your project. Once that local save is complete, the network save will start in the background as you work. So with this enhancement, you no longer have to wait until the network save is complete to continue working. There is a new brush selection method inside of 2016, and it can be accessed when using the selection by polyline methods. Instead of clicking where you'd like to place a point to draw a polyline, all you have to do is click and drag the cursor over areas to be selected. Users have also been given more control over the mouse configuration. For example, the zoom direction, when you scroll with the mouse wheel, you can now invert that. And you also have more customization with double-clicking as well. Now, this is one of my favorite enhancements. The Enhanced Pick now has the ability to reference key points to produce parallel, perpendicular, and a variety of other virtual intersections. All you have to do is hit the space bar when hovering over points to activate some relative points, and then VISI can then create elements relating to those 2 points in virtual space. This creates overall a more efficient 2D drawing, less time creating references and using extra geometry that you'll end up deleting later. Also inside of the Enhanced Pick, when hovering over a point, you now have the option to enter in an XYZ offset point relative to your current point. The Enhanced Pick can now also select a point along the edge of a surface or a body. It'll simply snap and then slide along the edges. Now, if you're not fond of hitting the space bar to activate those relative points I mentioned just a moment ago, you can opt to simply hover over a point for about half a second, and then VISI will recognize it for the command. And this is toggled in the settings dialog box. It's the automatic special snap points on search point option shown up here at the top. Enhanced Pick also has several more filters to accurately generate the result you might need. And those are all shown down here at the bottom. Now, this is another really exciting upgrade. There's a new Edit Element command, and it removes the need to delete and redraw a incorrectly drawn element. It's accessible under the Edit drop-down menu or just by simply double-clicking on the element. The size and position can be edited with the dynamic points. We can see a couple examples of those in the images here. And this will work for wireframe elements as well as profiles. It's very quick, easy to use, and can save loads of editing time. The sketch lines and sketch circles have also been greatly enhanced. I know that I hardly ever used them before myself, but they're quickly becoming some of my go-to commands for any kind of wireframe element. You can now enter in specific values directly after placing your first point. You can see here for these sketch lines, we have an X value, a Y value, diagonal, and angle parameters. And these can all be tabbed through with the tab key, and you can just type them in directly. The same thing for sketch circle. You place your center point, and then you can directly type in a radius. Lastly, the sketch lines can now pick up tangency points on curves inside of the elements environment. Previously, I think it was only able to pick up perfect circles and those tangency points, but now it'll work for all curves. Now, before I continue on, I'm going to go ahead and do a quick little demo, and we'll take a look at some of the things I just talked about. All right, so here we have a file open inside of VISI 2016, and I can see my new toolbar display up here. I have a variety of tabs that I can choose to work from. I can also choose to create my own tab, and I can add any grouping of icons just as I would before. I can rename the tab or just remove it altogether. To use my old toolbar from 21, I can go into my System Options, and inside of the User Interface tab, I can uncheck the Show Tab Toolbars and their labels. And I can just use my previous setup if I import from 21. I'm going to go ahead and turn mine back on since I've gotten quite used to them. I'm going to go ahead and jump into my rotation command. And you'll notice that once I'm in this command, I see these four icons up here. I have my check mark, my red X, and my forward and backward arrows. So I'm going to go ahead and move through my command. And then let's say once I get here, I realize that I chose the incorrect rotation point. I can very easily just go click on this back arrow, move to that point in the command where I'm selecting my rotation point, pick a new point, and either right-click or move back forward to where I was in my command, and then continue on. Now, to leave this command, I can either hit the Escape key, as I have previously done inside of VISI, or I can simply click on this red X to leave the command. I'm going to go ahead and take a jump into my profile from a face, which is now a Create Profile. And I'm going to use the selection by polyline. And here's where we can take a look at the new brush selection method. I'm going to go ahead and use the selection by open polyline. Now previously, to use this command, you would have to just point and click to create a polyline. But now what I can do is just click and drag and draw this free form selection. Very handy for any tricky or hard to get to surfaces you might need to select. I'm going to go ahead and escape out of this. And we'll take a look at our sketch lines command, and we'll see the enhancements with that, as well as some of the enhancements with the enhanced pick selection method. Go ahead and go into my points environment, the enhanced pick. And I'll just go ahead and place my first point. And right away, you see, as soon as I place that first point, I have the option to tab through 4 parameters here. I have an X, Y, diagonal, and an angle. So if I wanted to draw a line that was at 50 degrees and had a length of 4.5, I can just simply type those in, hit enter, and it draws that line. Now let's say I want to start another line that's 1 inch to the left of this endpoint. You can see that as I hover over this endpoint, there's the insert XYZ offset box that pops up. So all I have to do is enter the coordinate relative to this point. So if I want to start 1 inch to the left, I'm going to go ahead and type in a -1, 0, 0. I'll go ahead and hit enter, and VISI will start a new point at that location. I'll just go ahead and place that. Now let's say I wanted to start another line that was midway between these 2 endpoints. I can use Enhanced Pick's new ability to pick up virtual points. And to do that, I need to assign some relative points. So what I'm going to do is hover over this endpoint, hit the space bar to activate it as a relative point, hover over the other one, space bar, and now VISI can pick up a variety of virtual intersections between these points. Now we'll go ahead and take a look at the Edit Element command. It's accessible under the Edit drop-down menu right here in the middle, but also by default, it's accessible just by double-clicking on an element itself. So I can just double-click on that line, and instantly I'm in its editing mode. I can simply rotate it with the wheel that's located here, change the start or end points, or just move the position altogether. Now you'll notice that VISI also hangs on to the initial position of the wireframe element. So if I needed to go back and refer to any of those initial points, I could. All right, we'll go ahead and jump back into our PowerPoint. You may have noticed a moment ago I used a different command for the profile from face, and this is because VISI 2016 has consolidated some of the commands inside of it. So to start, we have this create profile command, and this encompasses the open, closed, quick, and profile from a face commands. The open and close are still available on their own, but they are also combined within this create profile command. All of the commands involving surface extensions have been simply grouped together inside of a command called extend surface. So this eliminates the need to search for any specific command. all of your adjustable parameters are within a single command in a single interface. There's now just one command for blends, and it contains the option to create a constant radius blend or a variable, and it's controlled by a simple toggle that's under the blend type header we can see here on the left. Similar to the extend surface commands, the draft faces commands have been combined into one command that contains all necessary parameters inside of a single interface. So again, it eliminates the need to hunt down any specific command. Everything you would need to do is inside of one command. Lastly, for the command consolidation, the delete detach faces has joined up with the extract faces command to become delete extract faces. Again, all previous functionality is still available. It's just more consolidated into one interface. All of the diagnostic commands are still present, but they are now just conveniently located in a bodies diagnostic submenu to make them a little easier to locate. The parts revision inside of Assembly Manager is now more customizable. For example, you have the revision field is now user definable. Users also have the ability to use the part revision code as a part of the file name when saving your plot view pages. There's also an option to use to plot a table with the complete list of revisions on a part. So that's very useful for generating any kind of report or just general organization of any revisions. The Snapshot Manager has also seen its fair share of upgrades as well. You can now automatically produce the graphical output with a white background. And you also have the ability to save the snapshot list as separate image files. And these can be BMPs, JPEGs, PNGs, and TIFF files. So this really makes it a lot easier to create any kind of presentation or report documents. Plot View has a few enhancements as well. Now, inside of the Page Manager, different views have their own branch inside of a page for easier and more customizable management. We can see here that branched fashion. It also goes for the section views as well. So if you create a section view off of a top view, for instance, that top view will have another branch that will lead to that section view. There's also a new outbreak section that allows the user to create a partial section view inside of a pre-existing view with a customizable boundary and depth. The translators have been updated to support newer versions of the supported software types. Other enhancements include better exports from 3D PDF, dealing with its general performance and ensuring that the part is always fit to the screen by default. The CAD-TST V5 reader now permits whole attributes mapping, and the UG reader supports layer categories for parts. Moving on to mold, inside of 2016, we have some really nice enhancements that utilize instances to edit your mold elements. For starters, when hovering over a cooling element, VISI will now recognize it as its own entity and display an icon specifically for cooling parts rather than just generic geometry. Because VISI now recognizes this as a cooling entity, it's handled as such. After a CAD transformation on a cooling circuit, say just a translation, for example, the system will automatically update the relative cooling tree structure in reference to the modification done. Copying the channels, the system will also automatically add them to the cooling tree. And you can see an example of that on the right-hand dialog box where we can see a copy 1 created. Additionally, there is a new function that allows you to add standard elements as you build these cooling channels. All you need to do is select one of the icons shown on the left here to tell VISI which ends you'd like to add the elements to. It's also now possible to insert standard elements using the multiple selection on the cooling tree. So these channels no longer have to be edited individually. 2016 contains a new command to easily create lubrication grooves. The creation method operates just like your ordinary standard elements would. You just simply select a face and a central point to apply, and then change any of the available parameters to create what you need. Right now this exists under mold, but I believe it's also going to be added to progress as well in a future release. Like mold, progress has also adapted the use of instances for easier and more efficient editing. The use of instances allows the user to change the part and strip study simultaneously, which saves lots of time. So there's no longer a need to completely redo an entire strip study after making a quick edit to a part. All you have to do is use the rebuild command, and the strip study will adjust accordingly. Punches can now be managed through instances as well. That way, if you were to edit one of those punches with a mirrored version, its counterpart will also take the same effect. Inside of the strip study, multiple studies can be created and managed inside of a singular VISI file. For example, during the estimating phase, the user could work on multiple strip projects, then evaluate the best solution to use all inside of one file. The strips layout list is provided on the main user interface on the strip manager and allows the user to easily switch from one strip layout to another, and that's shown in the smaller column here that's got a red box around it. The standard elements received a really nice upgrade in this version. They're more easily edited inside of VISI using the new menu that's shown on the right portion of the dialog box. It's a very familiar interface, and therefore that makes it pretty quick to pick up on. You can also now edit the rule table inside of VISI, so there's no longer a need to go and dig through folders and locate an MDB file and edit that manually. You can do that right inside of VISI. When adding a standard element, you can opt to remember settings and then load settings using the adjacent icon. It's a really nice solution for your commonly used parameters that aren't quite used often enough to be considered a default. And lastly, for flow, the material database has been fully updated and revamped. And that will bring us to the end of the webinar. I'd like to say thanks for all your attention during the presentation. I'm really excited to begin using these innovations inside of 2016, and I hope you guys are too. Again, if you have any questions, please feel free to contact our sales rep or our tech support group via phone or email. Again, the contact information is shown here. So thank you again, and enjoy the rest of your day.